All right, welcome back. If you drifted off for a moment, that's perfect. That means this is working exactly as intended. Adjust your pillow if you need to, let your jaw unclench, and let's continue floating gently through history, where absolute power met very human insecurity, usually with expensive consequences. We'll ease into our next ruler by sliding quietly into ancient Rome, a place where power was loud, unstable, and usually ended with someone being stabbed by their coworkers. Augustus, the man who pretended he wasn't a dictator. Let's begin with Augustus, or Octavian, or Gaius Octavius. He had a few names, which is usually a sign that someone is trying to rebrand after a messy phase. Augustus didn't look powerful. He wasn't intimidating. He wasn't physically impressive. He was sickly, cautious, and often described as looking permanently tired, which honestly makes his rise to power even more impressive, or alarming, depending on how you feel about quiet people with long-term plans. He was Julius Caesar's adopted heir, and when Caesar was assassinated, because of course he was, Rome descended into chaos, again, as it always did. Augustus calmly watched stronger men tear each other apart while he waited, patiently, politely, like a man standing in line at a bakery while everyone else argues about who was there first. Eventually, Augustus emerged as Rome's sole ruler, but here's the clever part. He refused to call himself a king or dictator. No, he called himself princeps, first citizen, just a humble public servant with absolute authority over the entire Mediterranean world. Classic move. Augustus ruled for over 40 years, and instead of dramatic battles or wild speeches, his power came from administration, laws, reforms, census-taking, paperwork, endless paperwork. He reorganized the army, stabilized the economy, and created what we now call the Pax Romana, a long period of relative peace. But Augustus's personal life was less stable. He had serious trust issues. He exiled his own daughter for alleged moral crimes, which is Roman speak for she embarrassed him politically. He micromanaged his family's marriages like a stressed wedding planner, and despite all his planning, his chosen heirs kept dying inconveniently. By the time Augustus died peacefully in his bed, a rare achievement for a Roman ruler, he left behind an empire that would last centuries and a family so emotionally damaged it would fuel several seasons of prestige television. Let's drift forward now to a man who inherited this empire and immediately turned it into a personal therapy session. Caligula, when absolute power meets zero self-control. Ah yes, Caligula, Rome's most infamous emperor, a man who proves that childhood trauma plus unlimited authority is not a great mix. Caligula grew up surrounded by death. His father, Germanicus, was beloved and then mysteriously poisoned. His family was systematically destroyed by political rivals. So by the time Caligula became emperor at just 24, he had every reason to be paranoid, emotionally unstable, and deeply suspicious of everyone around him. At first, Rome loved him. He canceled taxes, he threw games, he smiled. People thought, oh good, a fun one. That phase did not last. Soon, Caligula declared himself a living god, because why not? He dressed in divine costumes. He demanded worship. He reportedly planned to make his horse a consul, not necessarily because he loved the horse, but because he wanted to humiliate the Senate, which he did, constantly, passionately. Caligula's rule became unpredictable. One day generous, the next day murderous. He bankrupted the treasury with lavish spending and then blamed everyone else for it. He slept during the day and held meetings at night. He enjoyed watching people squirm. Was he insane? Possibly. Was he traumatized? Almost certainly. Was he powerful? Technically, yes, until the Praetorian Guard decided they'd had enough. Caligula was assassinated after just 4 years on the throne. His death was swift, his legacy loud. And Rome, exhausted, looked around and said, maybe let's try someone calmer. Which brings us to his uncle, Claudius, the emperor everyone underestimated. Claudius was not supposed to be emperor, ever. He had a limp, a stutter, and a tendency to ramble about obscure historical facts. His family mocked him, ignored him, left him out of politics entirely, which ironically saved his life. When Caligula was assassinated, the guards found Claudius hiding behind a curtain. They declared him emperor on the spot, possibly because he was the only adult male left who hadn't annoyed them yet. And here's the funny thing. Claudius turned out to be surprisingly competent. He expanded the empire, he improved infrastructure, he built aqueducts, he loved administration, he loved paperwork. He was, at heart, a nerd who finally got a chance to organize things. But Claudius had one fatal flaw. He trusted his wives. This was a mistake. His marriages were chaotic, manipulative, and lethal. His final wife, Agrippina the Younger, allegedly poisoned him so her son, Nero, could become emperor. Which brings us gently to one of history's most emotionally messy rulers. Nero, the emperor who needed applause. Nero didn't want to rule. He wanted to perform. He wanted to sing, act, play the lyre, be admired, applauded, constantly. And unfortunately for Rome, he had absolute power. Nero fancied himself an artist. He forced audiences to listen to his performances. They weren't allowed to leave. Some reportedly pretended to faint just to escape, which is honestly relatable. His rule began reasonably enough, but soon Nero became paranoid. He executed rivals, he killed his own mother, yes, that happened, and spiraled into extravagance. The Great Fire of Rome occurred during his reign. Did he start it? Probably not. Did he handle it badly? Very much so. He blamed Christians. He built a massive palace. He sang. Eventually, Rome had enough. The Senate declared him an enemy of the state. Nero fled, and when capture became inevitable, he took his own life, reportedly saying, "What an artist dies in me," which is a sentence. Let's gently step away from Rome now and float eastward to a ruler whose power was vast, but whose family tree was deeply concerning. Ashoka, the emperor who got tired of violence. Ashoka the Great ruled the Mauryan Empire in India during the 3rd century BCE. He began his reign as a typical conqueror, ambitious, ruthless, efficient. Then he fought the Kalinga War. The destruction horrified him. Thousands dead, cities ruined, and something shifted. Ashoka renounced violence. He embraced Buddhism. He promoted tolerance, welfare, and moral governance. He carved his beliefs into stone pillars across the empire, literally etched his personal growth into public monuments. And here's the sleepy irony. Ashoka may have been one of the most powerful rulers in history precisely because he chose restraint. His empire thrived, trade expanded, religious freedom flourished, and his legacy became of moral authority, not fear, which is rare and quietly impressive. Let's glide onward toward a ruler whose power was vast, but whose family tree was deeply concerning. Charles V, Emperor of too much everything. Charles V ruled over Spain, the Holy Roman Empire, parts of Italy, the Netherlands, and the Americas. His empire was so large people said the sun never set on it. He inherited power from every direction, which meant inbreeding. So much inbreeding. Charles suffered from severe health issues, jaw deformities, digestive issues, chronic pain, the physical cost of generations marrying cousins. He spent his life fighting wars, managing rebellions, and dealing with religious conflict. And eventually, he gave up. Charles' aptitude